Hey bike farmers, thanks for clicking in. My goal with this bike is to make it better than brand new. I'm going to address all of the haters that I've seen over the past year in my comments that say that I'm not thorough, that I don't know what I'm doing, that I'm cutting corners, that I'm ripping people off, that my services aren't worth it, all of those things. It doesn't really drive me that crazy because they're just flat out wrong. However, there is some validity to their arguments. There's more that I could do with my standard tune-ups to these bikes. I'm going to do all of the things that I usually just skip over because it's really not worth it for a lot of these bikes. If you want to optimize performance and minimize your maintenance intervals on a bike, do these things. Grease the hubs, the bottom bracket, and the headset, adjust everything, put it all back together. I don't care about the quality level of your bike. This is an entry-level bike. It can still last forever if you do these things. This is a Giant Revel, probably something that somebody bought for one of their kids. You know, you go into the bike shop, you're like, I'm looking for something affordable, general purpose, all-arounder type bike. I didn't sell this one, but these were very popular in my first couple of years of having my bike shop about 7, 8 years ago. I really like them. They already come with like plump, slick tires for riding around town, a little bit of an upright handlebar. The seat isn't super comfy. It's not terrible either, but these things sold like hotcakes. They're great. 3x7 drivetrain. So we're gonna take a little extra time in this video, do all of the extra things, kick back, relax, let's get started. Okay, per the usual, click the little buttons and go little and little. We'll disconnect our brakes and pop the wheels off and set them aside. And per the unusual, I'm just gonna dive right in. We're gonna pull this bottom bracket out, clean everything, grease it, and put it back together. So there are two types of crank pullers. You have the one with the handle on it. Works just great. It's kind of one self-supported unit, really common. I like these better. I feel like they're easier to use. It's a little bit quicker. And it's just a 15mm wrench. And if you get these really slick ratcheting Park Tool ones, it makes pretty easy work of it. Pop it right off. I mean, I have 3 different bottom bracket tools here. This one, I don't know, this one looks like it's even been ground down or something. Somebody modified it, I think, to fit, I don't know, something. I don't know what that one's all about. But you got these two, very similar. I guess it doesn't really matter to me. This one's got some bigger splines. But anyway, I just use a ratchet. And the left side is regular old lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. And it's tight. Oh, okay. So, challenge number 1. Oh man, that's tight. So we've got a tool for that. This thing, I don't know what you call it. Bottom bracket tool holder inner tool. But it's essentially a long bolt, and then with this knurled nut that'll hold the tool in. That ensures that you get good purchase. Then you take your BFW and then your BFH. Okay, get that all hooked up. Oh, dropped a wrench. There we go. So when you back it off, then the whole system kind of tightens in on itself, and you just have to work it out. So this they call the adjustable cup, because old school bottom brackets, this would be the adjustable side, and then the other side is fixed. And then this side is reverse thread. So, well, let's see here. We're gonna try it. Well, it's hard to get purchase on that too. I always have to modify my technique to not block the camera. So it's always easier to kind of use the holder, the tool holder honor thingy here. Let's see if we can just muscle it off. Yeah. And now this side, everything comes out as one. So when you have it all bolted together like that, and then the bottom bracket comes out. You can see everything's pretty clean here, as far as no rust goes. And there's a spacer, we don't want to lose that. But the threads are clean. This is an aluminum frame. You can clean that all out. You know, it looked like Giant had some pretty good grease in here from the factory. Good job. Good job from the Big G. I've always been a fan of Giant. I think as far as the Big 3 goes, they're my favorite. Very practical. Now this is just dusty in here, so I'm gonna go straight to my favorite furniture polish. Behold. We'll just give her some good polish in here. You know, better than brand new, right? So with the crank off and everything, and bottom bracket, I mean with everything out, it's really easy to get in and kind of floss things. You know, we just kind of wipe as we go, sort of like Grandma does after she'd been eating prunes. So here I'm gonna take some Dawn Power Wash. It's a nice degreaser. Just kind of clean things up a bit. All right, might as well clean that guy up a little bit too. Little compressed air, and then a final little wipe before we put it back together. So you can see, I mean, this thing bounced right back. It's very clean in there. We haven't even lubricated. You know, that's the basic step, is cleaning, lubricating, and then adjusting. So with everything cleaned, we'll lubricate. In this case, it's grease, and I just use Park Tool grease. You can buy a tub. I have affiliate links. Check the description for the affiliate links and get yourself a tub of Park Tool grease. And these are just, you know, general purpose, like flux brushes. Pick up at the hardware store. I guess I could have an affiliate link for those too. 1,000,000 affiliate links. And then then that goes in there. Now do not cross thread this. You know, just it'll go in easy once you clean it, everything. Once you clean everything up, it'll go in nice and easy. Just gonna tighten that tool all together just to make sure. All right. Guten tight. Just crank on it. Looks like there's been a few instances of chain drop. These Testors enamel model paint pens make for great touch-up paint. Well, sometimes you gotta get them started. Just get it started on the workbench and then a little bit of paint. Not like anybody's ever gonna notice this because it's gonna get covered in filth after the first ride. But, you know. And I'm gonna put the chain right on that paint. And let's get the chain off the paint. There we go. I guess I'm sort of going off script here, or out of order. I don't always put the chain wheels back on, crank, drive side crank on like this. Usually I put the adjustable cup on next and the bottom bracket, finish that process. Now I don't want to crank on that yet because we don't have the other side of the bottom bracket supported, so I'm going to put the adjustable cup back on. We've already greased the threads. Okay, and I'm going to go backwards. Again, you don't want to cross thread anything here. That aluminum is very soft in the frame, and this thing is steel, and you'll just tear it apart. So take your time. Sometimes it helps to put a wrench on it. Good and tight. A lot of people ask about greasing these tapers. It seems like it's about 50-50 on whether or not you grease that or not. I've never cared either way. You want to make sure that you got grease on these threads. And I think this bike in particular either came with good grease from the factory or somebody cared when they assembled it and added some, because everything has been very clean and greased and pretty good on this bike. But you definitely want to grease these bolts and crank them down as tight as possible. We'll do the drive side too, because remember we skipped tightening it down until we got the adjustable cup in to support everything. Whoa. It's all very clean and new and greased and way more better hay. This is one of my favorite tricks. Push in the rear derailleur, pop that out, do the same there. And then the front derailleur is a little trickier because the chain kind of gets in the way, but you can pull that out and then wiggle that piece of housing out as well. That's the rear derailleur housing, and that's the rear brake housing. And you move up to the front of the bike and find the cable stops, and all those can be disconnected. Okay, so everything's just flopping around, disconnected. And what's nice about that is nothing's getting in the way of the frame, so this is a good time to clean it. Now this bike looks to be more dusty than greasy. If it's greasy, I go with Dawn Power Wash. Actually, let's do that. Let's do Dawn Power Wash and then wipe that down, and then we'll go through and polish it with Behold. So starting with Dawn. And then some Behold. Okay, so now we got things pretty clean. We can pull all of the housing, except for the front brake. Front brake's a little trickier. But if you get access to all of the housing here, you can just drop a little bit of lube on each cable, like yay. And then just kind of work them. Just work it a little bit. And that is slicker than snot on a doorknob. I like slick cables. Now, front brake is always a little tricky. You don't get as much slack, but you do have gravity. So you just kind of let surface tension and gravity do its thing. Try to get things in its happy home. And then just work that. And like usual, don't forget to lube your noodle. Okay, and then this bit of housing, or a bit of cable here, has been exposed to the elements. There's a little bit of surface rust, so this is just some fine steel wool. Just clean that up a little bit. And then we just do the same thing here with the lube. Just kind of, wherever the cable goes through the housing, I like to lubricate. It doesn't hurt to lubricate in between the housing too. Kind of keep this rust at bay. You know, if the bike's left outside in the elements, it's gonna do what it wants to do. Mother Nature's a lot stronger than anything we can do in the shop. But you can at least kind of curb the effects a little bit. All right. And then we'll go through and just plug everything back in. Oh, what a stretch. So I can't get it in this home here because it's not in its home way up on the lever. Oh man. All right, you gotta have everything in its home. And then, whoop, there it is. So in the spirit of going the extra mile, most of the time I'll just drop Tri-Flow down in here. Okay, just like that. Kind of wiggle things around, let gravity do its thing. So this will be a nice little experiment to combat the haters. All right, we'll lube this left one, but not the right one. Now I can tell these were not lubed, but there's a little bit of Loctite that comes from the factory. So we broke that Loctite. There's no rust or anything, but Yeah, these posts are bone dry. So there was no lubrication from the factory at all on these brakes. Okay, now this one, I had just done the Tri-Flow trick and there's plenty of lubrication there. Now it's really thin and it's just Tri-Flow, so it's not as good as grease. But it is my conclusion that it's good enough for who it's for when you just Tri-Flow down in there. I think that is just fine. I've tuned up thousands of bikes over the last 8 years. I mean, I've tuned up a lot more than that in my whole life, but and a lot of them I get to see year after year after year, and the Tri-Flow trick works. That said, now that we have it all apart, or if I'm ever installing brakes, I use grease. You know, if it's taken apart and you have her opened up anyway, might as well do it right the first time. I don't necessarily always believe in doing it right the first time. It's always a trade-off. It's a time trade-off. This takes a lot more time, even when you're using power tools. All right, and this bone dry mamma jamma gets greased up. And then we will just Tri-Flow the mechanism back here. And I like to take the lube and rub it into the finish here. If there's been any UV damage, the lubrication seems to bring back that glossiness. Again, wiping as we go. Grandma used to have a little song she sang, and we'd hear her from the bathroom after she'd been eating prunes. Wiping as we go, wiping as we go. When you eat like I do, you'll be wiping as you go. These brake pads. This one is worn uneven. It's like kind of wedged. I don't know if that's gonna show up in the camera. This one's square. I'm thinking that's just brake pad placement, but this one needs to be replaced, so we might as well replace them both. Now's a good time to do it. So what I'm doing is I'm taking note that this is the wide spacer on the pad side of things. Just a mental note. I'm not gonna say ope when I drop brake pad parts, because I just let them go. Sometimes you have to surrender to gravity. Just let it go. But I'll be more careful. So this is how they come apart. Okay. You'll see there's this wide spacer here, and then the skinny spacer here. So that, you can switch those spacers around if you want, and that'll change the position of your brake caliper. Or whatever I call these calipers. It makes more sense to me, or not caliper, cantilever. The brake, you know, it'll change the angle. It'll, you know, how far it squishes in. I'm not good at explaining things, people. Stop asking me to explain myself. I'm not good at it. Okay, and then these brake pads have a right and a left. This one's marked R. There's no way you'll be able to see that. I try to take everything off like that, and I'm not gonna let go of either of them. Supporting that with my finger, just keep it all together. And then very awkwardly, I grab a hold of my grease brush and I put a little bit of grease on the threads. And then that slides through on that side, and hopefully I don't drop anything. Then I take my greasy fingers and I rub them all over the pad just to trigger that sensation you're feeling inside of you. What the hell's he doing? Because I'm a troll. Okay, same thing. Got a little bit of grease on there. Now on rim brakes, it really doesn't matter. Whatever filth I get on these is gonna burn off, and as soon as it touches something, it's not a big deal. Now on disc brake pads, just don't contaminate them. That's the rule. Just don't get anything on them ever, because they are way more sensitive to such things. But these systems are very robust. Rim brakes are far less finicky. And V-brakes, I think, stop bikes better than disc brakes. Disc brakes provide a better modulation. They give you a little more control over the bike, which I think really comes into play in mountain biking, which I don't do much of, but you really don't need it otherwise, in my opinion. That said, I mean, on my road bike, doing alpine passes, there have been times where I wish I had disc brakes, but this last trip I took, the caliper brakes on my road bike did just fine. Rim brake calipers going down mountain passes. I'm not getting paid to do it. I don't need to go that fast. It's fine. Anyway, front brakes look really good. These pads are not worn down. They are a little cracked, it looks like. But they still feel pretty soft. Maybe that's just a superficial thing that I'm seeing. Yeah, I'm not concerned. I'm gonna leave those pads on. I don't think we need to replace them yet. We'll replace those in the next tune-up. But if you wanna optimize this, and I guess that's the point of this video, an optimization would be replace the pads, but I think it's an unnecessary expense, so I'm not gonna do it. Save myself a few bucks. Anyway, we are going to pull them off and grease them because we know that they're not greasing these things in the factory. We're gonna go better than brand new here, buddy. Boy, howdy. All right. So this rag at this stage of the game has a little bit of tackiness to it. So we can just kind of rub things down. Also, I don't service cheap forks. It's not worth it. You know, if you want to get into that, go right ahead. It's not going to happen here. We just kind of try our best to kind of get these boots to do something. I don't even know how they really operate. They never seem to stay put. I think these forks, well, they do soften up the front end. They are primarily gimmicky, just to make it seem like a mountain bike, but I think these are just general purpose bikes. I wouldn't want to do too much riding in the woods with it myself. Then again, I don't do too much riding in the woods with anything. Okay, a little bit of greasy grimy on the posts. Do a little bit of tri-flow in the mechanisms. Happy home. It's like a greasy, grimy brush. Takes care of that dust. Wiping as we go. Brakes are done. Let's take a look at this headset. Pull this cap off. I can feel it in my fingers, dry as a bone. And I'm holding the fork. Oh, dropped a spacer. Big surprise there. Here's a dust seal. Dust something. Okay, grab the parts here so they don't go flying. All right, what are we hung up on? Okay, and out. And I just kind of take my time with that just so things don't get too out of hand. So here are all the spacers. So this is all a sealed mechanism. So when it's all sealed up like that, I just kind of don't touch it. Just inviting problems. Okay, now I got a dirty rag here that I'm wiping things with. Yeah, everything looks pretty clean here. We're just gonna kind of put some light grease and put it back together. Light grease there, a little up in here. Okay, now we just wanna not get things too out of order here. A lot of dexterity involved. Whoa, almost lost the whole kit and caboodle there. Hey, all right. So, set that aside. Here's my dust cap. That really isn't gonna ever be a satisfying situation, I don't think. All right, so the wedgie is in there. Yeah, so that dust cap doesn't really do much. And we wanna grease this bolt, which, again, with some dexterity, I can get at right like that. Let's put the stem in first, huh? What do you say? What do you say we put it together properly? So you can grease this part here if you really want. I don't think it matters a whole lot. I think it's more important to grease threads. That's somebody, if you know what you're doing out there, let me know if you grease your steer tubes. I mean, in general, I guess anything steel is better to be greased. Okay, so I'm just kind of going finger tight with that. And actually, I'm gonna drop a little bit of Tri-Flow right there and back it off so it flows down in there. And then there's just like a layer of lube and Teflon in there just in case it wants to start rusting at some point. So yeah, it's just a little bit tighter than finger tight. You know, nothing, you don't want it binding. And then I'm gonna do my best to align things. I think it's really hard to align things in the stand. It's really easy to do when the bike's on the ground after you get the wheels back on and everything. All right, let's get after these wheels a little bit here. First thing I'm gonna do is pull the skewer. Okay, just put it back together a little bit to keep the parts. Kind of inspect things. That feels really smooth. It's not loose, but we're gonna open it up and grease it anyway. So to really get at this, freewheels are easier to grease than free hubs. We're gonna pull this freewheel off. Freewheel removal tool. All right, now you don't want to be at an angle. Just keep everything flush and tight and just crank until it breaks loose, and hopefully you don't break anything. Just make sure you have good purchase on that tool before you do that. Okay, now this spoke protector, you know me, I like spoke protectors. It's a 4-banger. That's what I call them, at least. It's a 4-prong spoke protector. Right? That's good for cassettes and freewheel or free hubs. But on freewheels, you can use these donut ones, which I think are way better. They don't break, they last longer. So I'm gonna replace the spoke protector since I have everything apart. Normally I wouldn't on a tune-up, I would just leave all this together. I wouldn't touch this hub. It's definitely good enough for who it's for, but we'll open it up and you'll see there's insufficient grease in there. I can tell that already. So, rear wheels, the cone is generally a 15mm wrench, hub wrench or cone wrench. And then the outer nut here, the lock nut, is 17 millimeter. So again, this is awkward because I'm worried about the camera angle and getting the shot. Usually I kind of do this on the ground, or maybe even I should be probably doing this on Woody Charleston. You guys know about Woody Charleston from my other videos. I don't know if he'll make an appearance or not. Okay, I'm holding this side and I'm turning the back. All right. Oh, and all the balls are gonna fall out. Should we just take it all apart? And be careful. I mean, we could replace all the balls too. I'm gonna reuse them because they're fine. This bike doesn't have that many miles on it. I know that. I can just tell. If you keep a rag on your bench, it keeps things from bouncing, by the way. There is plenty of grease in this hub. There's no worries at all here. I mean, I could just put it back together and it would be fine. But we have it apart and we're being thorough today. So take a really dirty rag, collect all of the balls you can. Oh, there's 2 more in there. So I'm looking in there to see if there's any more, and there's not. Okay, now there should be 18 of them, I think. I think it's like 9 on each side. So this is the Ecotech. It's kind of a good degreaser. Kind of using that same rag, just cleaning the axle. Here's the cone. Looks really good. Clean inside the hub here. It's kind of hard to get all of that dust out of there. It really gets stuck in the nooks and crannies of things. Clean your spokes. I find it a lot easier to work on wheels in the stand, and Park Tool does have a wheel holder thing, but once you get the axle out like this, it's not usable. So I just kind of bench top it. You know, I learned how to fix bikes at a shop that was pretty ill-equipped, I would say. We just kind of had to make do with what we had. It very much a DIY, you know, do it yourself in your garage kind of environment, which I think translates really well to these videos because this is kind of like amateur bicycle maintenance done by a professional. So I made this thing. And it's really not worth it. It's really kind of dumb because I just always end up smushing grease in by hand anyway. I think just buying tubes, this is anti-seize compound, it's a little different, but buying these tubes you can just, you know, getting a tube of grease is probably a good idea. And then I don't know why I bother trying to keep my fingers clean because doing this they get all greasy anyway. Should probably wear gloves. I'm out of gloves. I'm gonna go get some more. I get them from Harbor Freight. Oh, just dropped one through and it got stuck. These are annoying hubs. So you can see like how long this takes. This is why I don't do it. You know, it was fine from the factory and it was adjusted and, you know, like it's just, I just don't think it's worth it. But this is all optimal stuff, next level. But I don't like wasting my time. Now I'm using the grease to hold everything in place for when I flip it over.
lots of grease. And I can see one down in there. This is so annoying. There. I don't see the other one that I thought I dropped. Nothing's bouncing loose. So, must have dropped one somewhere. I can get this all together and that it's gonna be in there somehow. It's just gonna rattle and we're gonna have to take it all apart again. That's the story of my life. Oh, dropped a bearing. Well, dropped a ball bearing. It's all ball bearings these days. All right, then. Put the axle through and reassemble. Okay, that all feels really good. Plenty of grease on the threads. Okay, so what do I do to adjust it? Now, hubs, you know, you want it to be not wiggly, you know, not loose, obviously loose, and then not binding, okay? And if you just finger tight everything good, a lot of times when you put your cone wrench on, weird angle here, do that, it backs it off a little bit. So now I have a little bit of wiggly. So my little cheater method here is to take an adjustable wrench and put it on one side and then the 17 mil on the other, and I'm just tightening the whole system in, okay? And I'm gonna get it just to the point where I feel absolutely no play, which is right there. Then, if I put my cone wrench on, and when I crank down on the lock nut, it'll back that cone out just a little bit. And so there's you can hear that. There's just a tiny little bit of play in there. Now when the quick release cam mechanism squishes it all together, it'll set the preload and it'll be perfect in the frame. So you actually adjust the hubs just a tiny bit loose. But I have found that if you go, you know, and do one of these numbers, it just loosens it enough. So that side's really tight. And this actually feels like it might be a tad loose. Yeah, it's probably just a smidge loose. This is just something I've developed a feel for over time. So I will do the cheater method again, just to get it to move like just a tiny bit. Maybe a tiny bit more for good measure. We're about to put the spoke protector and the freewheel back on, so we want to just kind of wipe as we go here quick. This is all pretty dirty here. Clean that out good. And I like Phil's Tenacious Oil for freewheels. Just kind of let that work its way down. Also, always put the cap back on your Phil's Tenacious Oil, because you will knock that bottle over, and it is tenacious, and it will tenaciously work its way out of its bottle and make a filthy mess that you'll have to look at for the rest of your life. A little bit of grease on them there threads. So the freewheel is going to tighten down as you ride it, but that's tight enough to get everything adjusted properly. What do you think? Better than brand new? Look at that, no springs on the front skewer. I see this a lot, especially on entry-level bikes or bikes that I suspect were kids' bikes that dads who have not been watching Bike Farmer videos are trying to fix their kids' bikes and they just get everything wrong. You know, somebody put this in the trunk of their car and took the front wheel off and the skewer all the way off and lost the silly little springs. At least they're not put on backwards. Many people put the springs on backwards. I think that in the interest of time, not repeat that whole process for the front wheel. The only real difference is the front wheel has 13mm cones. But these are still 17mm lock nuts. And actually, also in the interest of time, I ain't touching it. I'll just double check because I know that the rear was greased. I'm assuming the front is greased too. You know, the rear was a gigantic waste of time. It's really good. There's just a slight play now. You know, that's something that people say is that hubs are always tight from the factory. I get that comment a lot. It's usually pretty true. I've also found that there's a break-in period and that by the time I get them back for their first tune-up, they're actually loose. I think an argument can be made both ways. I get it. It's probably something I should be checking on every single bike. A lot of mechanics do. A lot of shops, it's part of their tune-up is to check the cup and cone adjustment on adjustable hubs like this. I've never found it to be a huge priority on the types of bikes that I work on. Old race bikes, road racing bikes, you know, you want to make sure that everything's just optimized. You know, if you're racing, you got to win. And that's where the optimization matters. But for general purpose bikes, it's like, I don't know why I always feel the need to explain myself to the haters. I mean the helpers. Okay, so lube my skewer. So the skewer springs, they go pointy side in. Now this tire, see how the tread forms an arrow? The arrow points forward, so I'm going to put the skewer, the lever on the left side of the bike, the non-drive side of the bike, and then sometimes put a little bit of grease there, and then I pretend like that kind of seals things, which I think is actually kind of true. Oh, drop my Tri-Flow. And then I'll put a drop of Tri-Flow in the cam. Get that lubed. So the rear skewer also has no lube on it. Get a little bit of grease there. Now we'll take a look at these wheels. And this is where I find out that the rims are bent. Yeah, make sure your rims aren't bent before you go through all that work. I'm taking a pretty clean rag here. You know, we've already done a lot of cleaning on this wheel, but I wipe off each and every spoke, get them nice and shiny. Want a nice glossy finish on those spokes. I go through do one of these numbers and I just noticed something. Oh, that's really interesting. Apparently these wheels have Presta valve rims. That's really weird. Usually the cheaper bikes have Schrader valves, and I've actually, you've seen it in other videos, gone through and just bored them out on the cheap bikes because these Presta valves break brains. I mean, people just cannot, for the life of themselves, figure out how to deal with that, even though we have Google and YouTube. My EVT inflator here, very fancy inflator. There's a link. It's not an affiliate link. I don't get paid for it, but they did send me this one for free, and it has changed the way I do things. And I'm gonna go 60 pounds exactly. Why not? Because it's so simple. If you find yourself inflating a lot of bicycle tires, get one of those. It's worth it. Spend lots of money on great things, and you will have a happy life. I'm just touching up this wheel. I'm not gonna go into depth on truing wheels. Although, man, people do like to tell me in the comments that a real bicycle mechanic would measure every single spoke for tension and make sure that it's right and in spec and whatever. Okay, you know, we're not a professional race team here. There aren't $1 million sponsorships on the line, but I can just tell this is pretty good. One thing you can do is just go through and feel every spoke. And if you feel 1 or 2 or 5 way out of line, then you know you've got an issue. But those were all pretty even. The wheel building machines in Taiwan are doing a good job on these cheap wheels. It's fine. It's funny because I know in the past few videos, I've been complaining about the comments a lot. And all the YouTubers that I watch, you know, I watch guitar luthiers and machinists and, you know, other people that have a nice, you know, vocational skill that I can appreciate. I watch that stuff too. I watch the same type of content that I create, and they all complain about this, the comments too. It's maddening, you know, when you open yourselves up. It bothers me when people claim that I'm being dishonest. I've been pretty clear about that. I just don't like that. It's like I'm not being dishonest. That bothers me. That, you know, it's like I'm cutting corners to make more money or something. It's more of just a personal philosophy. It's just not worth it. But what's funny is that I've gotten comments complaining about me complaining about the comments. And it's great because most of you are like, don't worry about the haters, you're great, blah, blah, blah. And it's nice and rewarding to know that most of you totally get it. It's the few of you that don't. That it's just, come on, get a life, you know? Beautiful. Okay. Oh, forgot to put air in the tire. I don't always air up the tires in the truing stand, but I'm doing that today. $60 pounds. 60 pounds per square inch. Oh man, I said it wrong. Clearly I don't understand units. When I edit my videos, this is the most satisfying clip of all of them because I feel like I'm turning it back into a bicycle. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a machine of parts that we're optimizing somehow with cleaning and lubing and adjusting, making just exactly perfect. But it's all for naught until we make it rideable again. Put the wheels on, connect the brakes, which isn't gonna happen because we got new brake pads and we're gonna have to loosen that cable. Yep, okay. One thing I wanna check here is the preload on that hub, and it is absolutely perfect. That is just exactly perfect. Look at how freely that wheel is spinning. And there's no play. Nailed it. Whoop, did I feel something? Nope, nailed it. All right, we're gonna line these pads up. Okay, so here's the other thing, is the brake toe thing. I do not toe my brakes. I'm gonna try to be as clear about this as possible. I prefer a snappy brake. I want the pads to hit flush and flat and completely from day one. Okay, so that's how I set my pads up. Now what I'm doing is I'm inviting a higher probability of brake howl. Listen to that. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. I like how that feels, I like how it performs, and most of the time I get away with it. Now sometimes I don't. Sometimes putting new pads on or even using old pads and readjusting them cleaning the rims, all of that introduces variables that cause brake howling, and I end up kind of shooting myself in the foot and causing more problems for myself. The most common solution is towing the brakes, which means angling the pads so the front hits first. And people have all kinds of ways to do it. Rubber bands on the back so it kind of keeps it off the rim, or maybe putting a credit card or a business card under there, you know, just keep it a millimeter or two, and then, you know, that's gonna fix it. And it rarely ever does in my experience. If you, a ton of tows are gonna fix it every time, or sometimes reverse tow is gonna fix the howling every time, but then your brakes feel like crap. Really squishy. Now, arguments are made that pads are made for modulation, that, you know, you don't want them grabbing right away, that, you know, you can squeeze the lever and you get more modulation if you have tow to your brakes. The deal is over time, those pads are gonna wear at an angle and they're gonna hit flush someday. They're gonna wear, you know, and it's like, the tow doesn't last forever. I do know that like Cool Stop brake pads come with little knobs and or nubs in the back, or sometimes like a pointy angle thing to clear. It's like a mud clearance thing that also has tow built in. I don't know. I just think it's a cop-out, lesser way of adjusting brakes properly. I don't like to tow my brakes. I understand that that's a method and that it could produce desirable results of stopping howling, but it's not my preferred method. What I'd much rather do is just try it, see if it works without tow, which most of the time it does, right? And then if it doesn't, you can take emery cloth and clean the rims down. You can do a few things instead to fix the howling problem should it arise. We don't really know what we're up against. We don't know if we have a problem or not until we go for the test ride. And a lot of times in my videos, I just finish the bikes and I won't show you the test ride or the howling brakes and the fix and all that, just because it takes time. It's kind of boring, and you know, what are you gonna do? But you know, a lot of times I'll just spray Behold or Dawn Power Wash right on the rims and clean them, and people are like, oh man, that Behold is your problem. It's like, it's not. I've been doing this for a very long time and it doesn't really matter. It might contribute to something, but all of that wax or whatever is just, it just burns off right away. There's so much friction there that nothing survives. The only thing that really is a mechanical difference, you can change the surface of the pads or change the surface of the braking surface, the sidewalls of your rim. That's what I prefer to do. There's that rant, and there's a perfectly adjusted brake. I'm gonna assume that things are fairly well adjusted on the front, because this bike, which was born at Brings Cycling and Fitness in Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin, was assembled very well. So kudos to the folks at Brings for a good assembly. It's Bike Farmer approved. Yeah, I mean, that brake feels really good. Same amount of cable pull as the rear. It's really good. I mean, I don't know why I'd touch it. You know, how's my pad alignment here? I like it. Papa don't preach, I'm keeping that baby. Kind of hard for you guys to see it, but there's considerable filth on these shift levers. Hi. Take the filthy brush and get the rest of that dust out of there. My filthy brush is a great cleaning tool, isn't it? I just want to say I've never done this before in my life, and it worked really well. I've done this, but never this. All right, this looks to be pretty good, but it's always good to check that. Yeah, see, I can get a good half a turn out of it. Just tighten that down. They like to loosen up over time. The magic sauce for this sort of thing, I believe, is finish line one step. Apply liberally. Oh, there's the L word. It's going to trigger some of you. I think you should do everything liberally. That's why I have a ponytail. I've never been much of a cut your hair and get a real job kind of guy. Big surprise there, huh? Not sure why you'd play it conservatively. This thing called life. It's too exciting. See how that cleans right up? It looks like this had been in a garage where somebody was using some spray paint. And we could go through with some goof off and clean all that up if we really wanted to. But we're not bicycle polishers, we're bicycle mechanics. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7 speeds. Okay, a couple of things are going on here. Let's address the elephant in the room. You guys can't know this because you didn't feel it, but these shifters were not real snappy. So we're just gonna kind of flood this system with one step. Okay, we'll do the same. This barrel adjuster is all bent. It's going to be really hard to adjust that front derailleur. So what I'm looking at is this barrel adjuster is the best way to adjust the front derailleur, and it appears to be bent. Maybe I can just kind of figure out a way to bend it back. Maybe a light little tappa. So the chain is rubbing right on the inside of the front derailleur cage, and my cable is just a little loose. So I'm going to find the low limit screw. And I'm in the big cog in the back. So this is the granny gear, the low granny gear. I'm going to grab the low limit screw and I'm just going to back it out, and that's going to relax the derailleur in towards the bike frame and get it so that chain isn't rubbing anymore. Okay, and now my cable feels a little tight. So on that barrel adjuster that I was just tweaking, I'm turning the barrel adjuster all the way in, which loosens the cable. Okay, And that gives us this adjustment too. So we're in the middle ring in front and just trying to make it so that chain doesn't rub on the inside of the derailleur cage. And it's just like barely rubbing, which is probably good. So if I click down into the little or high gear, it's gonna barely rub on the outside, and it's not, but I'm gonna leave it because it's so close to being absolutely perfect that I think that if the next user of this bike actually shifts in the front, they're gonna get some stretching and compression. Actually, I might be able to do it manually. There's a break-in period is what I was getting at. Oh yeah, so I just stretched it out manually and now it's perfect. I wanted that cable just a little bit looser, but I didn't have any threads left on that barrel adjuster. So here's big and big, and we'll expect it to rub, but I feel like the high limit can come in just a little bit too. That limits how far the derailleur will push that chain. Okay, so the front is really good. I mean, that's as good as you're gonna get with a 3x7 turny group set, which really is not bad stuff. It functions super well. You know, fewer gears, the more wiggly room you have for adjustment. And I think the bikes work a lot better, actually. Yeah, Shimano 10-speed is the worst. 11-speed works pretty good. But generally speaking, the more speeds the bike has, the more finicky the adjustments are, especially with 10-speed. So I'm gonna pinch the derailleur, or hold it with my hand, and I'm just grabbing the cable and pulling it as hard as I can. And that just makes sure that that cable's stretched and everything's in its home. And just by doing that, I improve the shifting the little bit that I wanted to. Now, I could just turn in that barrel adjuster a smidge too. It does the same thing, but by stressing the system, you kind of are breaking in the bike for somebody so they don't have to discover it on their own. And you don't want the bike coming back because it's shifting funny all of a sudden because you didn't stretch the cables or set it up properly. My goal is to never see my customers again. I'm gonna try to clean up the tire a little bit. Use some Behold. Get it all over the rim. You know, the one that's not howling and now will, which is actually maybe kind of true. A lot of times you can just kind of ride out the howl, apply half pressure and ride around in your granny gear. Just break the system in and it'll go away. Then you just gotta burn that stuff off. Whatever filth may be there. Old brake material, old pad material, mixed with chemicals. The fastest way to lose credibility with any random customer is to show them a bike without a valve cap on it. It's the first thing they notice. This bike was missing well, it had kind of tipped over. More evidence that it was mostly owned by a kid. The bent barrel adjuster and a missing end cap. Kind of shows you that it wasn't very well cared for. It was just kind of dumped over a bunch of times. The saddle's in good condition. Anyway, this bike's in really good shape. We've been through everything. Check that headset's good. Take it out of the stand, check, make sure everything's straight, and then go for a test ride. Yeah, it's definitely not straight. Headset's good. Fork's got some play, but they all do. You can buy kits to get the plastic, I guess they're bushings, like, I don't know, and rebuild them and stiffen them back up, but I don't have any. So I'm just straightening that stem, aligning it with the frame and the front tire. Alec, the guy that used to work for me, old Alabama, and a bastard. He would ride around with the stem just slightly loose and then kick the tire as he rode. That's how he would straighten his stems. He is like a, you know, BMX freestyle kind of guy. Not me, man. Let's go for a test ride. I just kind of run through the gears a little bit here, and as I approach, I'll hit the brakes. No squeaking. Haha, no howling brakes. Oh, this is all really good, folks. There it is. Better than brand new. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. That is the most gratifying thing to know, that you've made it this far. The number one way you can support me is to watch to the end. That's not true. The number one way you can support me is just to send me money. And you can do that with a super thanks. Just send me money. I turn it into tacos, I eat, it fills my body full of nutrients, and I do more of this. Or if you just want to make sure that I always have tacos, consider a monthly sustaining membership, $5–10 a month. Most people, you won't even know it's coming out of your account, like all of the other subscriptions in your life. Just add me to the list. But if you want to do something for yourself, you click that notification bell so you and your bikes can stay tuned.